Good afternoon, everyone. It is great to have you with us for this very special webinar brought to you by Avon HMO. My name is Faith Nelson-Ojeaga. I am the Group Head Human Resources and Admin for Avon HMO. Before I introduce our very special panel, just a few housekeeping rules. I'd like to encourage you to use our question and answer chat box. So if you have any questions for the panels, please just put your questions in the Q&A box. But you also have the chat section where if you want to interact with, of course, the audience or participants at this webinar. When we talk about the glass ceiling, what do we mean? It's kind of a metaphor that describes, it talks about maybe when people are kind of marginalized, it could be by reason of gender, race. And so, especially in the workplace, they are unable to move maybe to upper echelons or to advance as fast as maybe their male colleagues in the workplace. And so we're going to be asking the question today, does the glass ceiling still exist? Do organizations still inspire inclusion? And we have a very special panel to actually, tackle this and share their experiences with us. So I am super excited to be introducing our panel. I am going to start with our keynote speaker, Adeyanju Olomola, Chief Executive Officer, The Source Coaching Limited. Adeyanju is a certified professional coach specializing in leadership and organizational coaching. Adeyanju supports senior leaders, especially women, in overcoming self-doubt during leadership transitions. She has 20 years in FMCG. She has held diverse roles, including Head of Public Affairs and Communications at Nigerian Bottling Company Limited. She successfully transitioned to co-operations. She became National Key Accounts Director. Adeyanju emphasizes talent development and process optimization, fostering associates' progression to higher roles. She is a certified John Matton Intelligent Leadership Executive Coach, an extended DISC and FINS accredited consultant, a narrative coach, enhanced practitioner, and a Team Coach Foundation certified coach. She is the lead coach and CEO of the Source Coaching Limited, an associate coach with Coach Hub, a senior coach and trainer with TNM Coaching, and a fellow coach with Better Up, which is a global digital coaching company. With an unwavering belief in the enormous potential within every individual, she partners with her clients as they are transformed in form and function. She is an avid supporter and contributor to the education and well-being of underserved Nigerian children and invests in their development, working through and with various NGOs. She sits on the board of Courage Education Foundation. It's a pleasure to have you, Ms. Adeyanju Olomola. I'm also introducing Atinuke Kolade. Atinuke Kolade is Group Head Retention and Growth for Avon HMO. Atinuke Kolade formally joined Avon HMO as a full member of staff in May 2019 as General Counsel, Company Secretary, and Regulatory Compliance Officer. She is currently the head of the department. Atinuke holds a Bachelor of Law from the University of Ibadan and was called to Nigerian Bar in 2006. She's also an alumni of the Lagos Business School, where she has acquired a certificate in Advanced Management Program. She has over 18 years work experience. It's a pleasure to have you, Atinuke. Odiri Ogini, she's Chief Executive Officer, United Capital Asset Management. Odiri Ogini is a Chief Executive Officer, a leading investment management firm, and a subsidiary of United Capital PLC. She is an experienced corporate executive and board director with 18 years of experience driving business strategy and financial performance. She is passionate about business transformation and helping companies achieve market leadership. Odini started her career as an auditor with Deloitte. In January 2019, Odiri was appointed the CEO of Asset Management Business of United Capital. Under her leadership, she has positioned the firm as a market leader in the collective investment scheme segment and the largest fixed income fund manager in Nigeria. She oversees assets under management of over 600 billion managed by a team of seasoned portfolio managers across multi-asset classes and investment strategies. She's also involved in equipping women with the knowledge and skills needed to make informed investment decisions. In 2021, Odiri was recognized as a top 100 career woman in Nigeria. She has also been recognized in Nigeria's Women Annual 100 Leading Women 2022 edition and Top 50 Women in Management Africa 2022. Under her leadership, United Capital Asset Management was also recognized as one of the fastest growing investment management companies in 2022 by International Finance. She's a first-class graduate of accounting from Babcock University, a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, and a CFA charter holder. She holds an MBA from Strata University and is also a DBA student at Lagos Business School. She's an alumni of Advanced Management Program in Lagos Business School and has attended various local and international programs. You are welcome, Odiri. And
thank you.
We also have Shola Mabatije. She is Head Legal and Company Secretary for Standard Chartered Bank Nigeria Limited. In her role as Head Legal, she's responsible for strategic identification, mitigation and management of legal risk for the bank. Shola is also responsible for the legal function in West Africa, where she supports the country head of legal and senior legal counsels across Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Sierra Leone, and the Gambia. She's a seasoned legal professional with over 20 years experience and has advised financial institutions and large corporations on complex legal matters, commercial and capital transactions, as well as corporate governance issues. Prior to joining Standard Bank of Nigeria in 2018, Shola was a corporate governance executive at Old Mutual Nigeria. While there, she led the compliance and company secretarial firms from 2014 to 2017. Her career within the financial services sector started in 2002, where she joined EcoBank Nigeria Limited. She later moved to Standard Chartered Bank in 2009, where she rose to deputize for and acted for the head of legal and company secretariats. She's a graduate of law from the University of Buckingham and received her master's degree from University of London. Well, she was called to bank in Nigeria. You are welcome, Shola.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Chidima Obojiaku is Manager, External and Government Affairs for Hares Energy. Chidima has extensive experience over 10 decades, has been instrumental in fostering strategic relationships, communications, advocacy, and ensuring compliance with regulatory provisions. She's a passionate advocate for sustainability and inclusion. Chidima is actively engaged in dual PhD DBA research, focusing on sustainability, illustrating her dedication to fostering environmental, social, and governance in advancements in her sector. She has a Bachelor of Engineering in Chemical Engineering, a Diploma in Oil and Gas Project Management, and an MBA in Strategic Leadership and Critical Thinking, including various professional certifications. Outside of her professional endeavors, Chidima enjoys a variety of activities, and this actually reflects her dynamic personality. She's passionate about yoga, gymnastics, track running, and dance. She also brings an analytical and inquisitive nature to exploring new ideas and contributing to the body of knowledge in her field. Chidima's multifaceted career and personal interests highlight her commitment to excellence, innovation, and a holistic approach to life and work. You are welcome, Chidima. It's a pleasure to have everyone, all our panelists. I am excited to hear the point of view of our panelists today. And so when we talk of the glass ceiling, does it exist? For some people, it may exist. Some people say, no, it's just a myth. In my organizations, I've been able to advance and have not had any challenges or any hitches. Some women may say, no, it's been very difficult. I've had to struggle every step of the way. I've had to go beyond, above and beyond what I'll typically do compared to my male counterparts. Some people may also say, oh, I had to leave an organization because it was too toxic for me. So we're going to have the opportunity for our panelists to share their experiences, how it has been for them. Do they have any challenges at all? And if they did, how were they able to overcome those challenges? And what kind of inspirational, what advice would they give our young people and other women who are coming up in the career ladder? So I'm going straight to our key speaker, Adeyanju. So could you tell us, does the glass ceiling exist? Is there anything like a glass ceiling at all? And in your experience, over the years, would you say organizations actually inspire inclusion? So Adeyanju, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, and good afternoon, to everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here and a great honor and privilege. But before I start, how many minutes do I have? Sorry, because I've timed myself.
Well, 2 minutes should do the initial introduction. I still have a couple of questions. So I'll just wait for you to give the overview about what your thoughts are. Then I'm going to throw in some more questions. So I guess we can do this for about 8 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. So gratitude to Avon, HMO, and sincere thanks to your MD CEO, Adesimbo Bello. She's a woman I greatly admire. And good morning to all the speakers and the participants. Whilst I was, thinking about, the webinar and also the theme, does the glass ceiling still exist? And, do organizations inspire inclusion? I was, really thinking about, the angle at which I was going to, talk or speak from. And personally, I came into this year's IWD season with a bucket load of defiance. My thoughts were framed around 2 words: beyond talk. And I kept thinking, what's going to make this go beyond talking and also go beyond the wearing of purple and the hand gestures and the pictures and all of that. And I actually took a decision that I was not going to do anything purple or wear anything purple on March 8th. But then I was invited to speak and I had to comply. And I wore a yellow and white outfit, but I did have purple lipstick on. So I definitely got the Avon purple lips memo. So it's really about, how we highlight, talk about, take steps, review progress, do more to bring about accelerated progress in gender equality, empowerment of women and women's equal participation in all aspects of life. So to get us going, I'm just going to ask a few questions in relation to the theme and, on the topic of our discussion. Who put up the glass ceiling and what is it made of, that it has created such a barrier to growth? It is glass, right? And in considering the material used, if it's broken or penetrated, would it still exist? And we have had some, shattering of this mythical glass ceiling. And have those who have been excluded been limited by the narratives that enabled its initial existence? I'm not going to talk, about, where it came from and who, because Faith has already, done that. But it was coined, and I found it very interesting that it was coined by a woman named Marilyn Loden. We know its existence is highly pervasive across all society, governance, politics, academia, industry. It is described as an invisible barrier, but it's a barrier, nonetheless. We have, been on the receiving end. Progress has been made, over the decades across various sectors of society. It has been painfully slow. It is regressing in certain quarters, stagnated in others. And, at times I wonder, should we even celebrate the progress? But it is delightful to see, and I do acknowledge, all the women and underrepresented, persons rising up and, taking position. We know the statistics, worldwide in Fortune 500 companies, it's not even up to 10%. It is 9.4% women that are CEOs in Fortune 500 companies as of December 2022, December 7th. And in Nigeria, if we look at the financial services sector in banks, now, at least in February, we got up to that number of 10 or 11 of major banks, not all banks, of major banks, which is about 36. So it's a percentage of about 38. And I could, go off reeling statistics to illustrate the disparity in pay, promotion rates, access to top executive positions, and the overall underrepresentation of women in leadership roles. But, it's just stop. Where would that get us? And we could also speak to the barriers, whether it's systemic or cultural, contributing to this glass ceiling, the biases, the stereotypes, the outdated gender norms. And, when we're talking, I will share a few stories that have influenced workplace cultures and fostered hostile environments. We all have experienced in one form or the other, and in varying measures, the frustration, the ridicule, the anger, disillusionment, that come from personal and professional consequences of encountering the glass ceiling. And the impact is real. I'm not, making light of it. The impact is real. I dare say it's as real as my hair color. So whilst we're discussing, the glass ceiling, there is another phenomenon to worry about, the broken rung. And that's, in recent times highlights the barriers women face when taking that first step to managerial roles. So, we're being hit from both ends, top and bottom. So what do we do? Like I said, enough talk. We know the stats. We are sadly the stats. So we've been, really formulating, discussing, and bringing to life initiatives and strategies in the workplace, in organizations to break through or to remove the glass ceiling. But now we are having to deal with ensuring that the bottom rung of the ladder is not broken, but it is firm and can, allow people to move on. But I want to, talk about inspiring inclusion from another vista, what we as individuals can do. We are the ones in the organizations, as many of us, are there. How can we champion inclusion in our organizations and in our communities? How can we harness the full potential of diverse perspectives, leading to better decision making and innovation? And, even though I can't see the faces of everyone who is present here, but I'm sure, and I guess maybe I'm speaking for myself, I'm sure some eyes are rolling and, some mental switches, are going off. But bear with me. I am of the view, and this is my personal mantra, that Adeyanju, I determine how far I go. And this has served me well in my professional career, and it's still serving me, in my entrepreneurial life. The thing is, we're both participants and recipients. And I think, we have focused too long on being on the receiving end. We definitely need collaborative solutions. Yes, we must work with all of society to create and bring to life, these solutions. But the thing is, we're not in competition. So what do we do? But I have, just a couple of questions. I love questions. I'm of a firm belief that in the presence of questions, the mind thinks, and you're able to broaden your perspectives. What narratives have you as a person consciously or unconsciously held on to? What are your thoughts about yourself and what you can achieve? And who determines how far you go? And lastly, what is your definition of success? I believe that, in changing the individual narrative and what we believe of ourselves and what we can aspire to and what we actually aspire to, it starts, with our definition of self. How we are able, when we are leaders, how we are able to internalize a leadership identity and also develop a sense of purpose. And that, it is such an iterative, process. So what are the guided actions and the purposeful interactions that you're taking to ensure that this process is an ongoing one? And before I conclude, I would just, share a couple of tips that we can, take. So for everyone, listening, starting with your leadership intent, who are you? Who do you envision yourself to be? Go back to those dreams that you had when you were a child or a teenager. And if you don't have any, fantastic. You have the benefit of age, knowledge, exposure to craft a compelling image for yourself. And you don't just stop there. Turn those empowering thoughts into action. Secondly, you have to build your bank of knowledge and expertise. I mean, just listening to the profile of the speakers, it is such a diverse and an expansive wealth of knowledge and expertise. But the thing is, as women, we don't know how to confidently advocate for ourselves or articulate that value that we're bringing, to this table, or, in shattering the ceiling. And we keep shattering the ceiling. I mean, once it's shattered, it's shattered. Let me just park that. So, it's really being fearless in advocating for yourself and for others. Next up is to stop self-selecting, pursue opportunities for advancement. One of the things that helped me when I made the transition from a support function, public affairs and communications, to a core function in sales was Sir Richard Branson, a quote attributed to him, and I had it on my wall, that if someone offers you an amazing opportunity, say yes. Even if you can't do it, you then go off and learn how to do it. And I definitely, have done that. Then join and be part of strong professional networks. These are safe spaces for questioning, for learning, for collaborating and contributing. And then connect intergenerationally. We can't, we have to take the full benefit across all generations. You learn relevance, you learn significance. And the last point, to share in terms of how we can foster as individuals inclusion is to widen the steps on the ladder. Who says ladders must only take one person at a time? We can widen the steps. Someone, and I think it was Indra Nooyi, I can't really remember, described how the world is operating. She likened it to a bird that is using one wing to fly. And the thing is, it's been doing it for so long and it believes it is great, but it does have two wings. So it is not about us as women being part or jostling to be part of that one wing. We want the world to realize that it has two wings and we are the second wing. And imagine the unaccomplished, feats, the unimagined heights we will, as a society, soar to when we use both wings. So it's how do we get this second wing working at full capacity? We can't get tired of unfolding the second wing. And I will conclude with a quote from a friend, a Kenyan friend and colleague, Bikundo Onyari. He says, for every part of you that is afraid, there's always a part that knows you can succeed. Thank you very much. But were we still talking about the glass ceiling? Because really and truly, is there a glass ceiling?
Very good question. Thank you so much, Adeyanju. You actually gave us, I think, a lot to think about, especially for our young people. Is there a glass ceiling? I mean, I just want to note, just bring us some of the things you had said. And when you had said the Fortune 500 companies, 9.5%, yes, I had done that research and I was like, wow, after all these years, all these decades, 9.5% Fortune 500 companies. I know, in Nigeria, especially as you had mentioned the banks, we have made some major strides. CEO, 10 people, CEOs in the major banks. There's still a way to go, but I think there was something you said, who determines how far you go? And I think for a lot of these women, I think they made that decision. Nobody determines for me. I have decided I am going to go, the full haul, and nobody's going to determine for me where I get to. And I think that is it's what you had, the recurring thing in what you had said all through. Develop an identity and a sense of purpose was what you said. What do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? You had even linked it to, as a child, what did you say you want to be? Going into school, going to university. Did you get to your workplace and decide, oh, do you know what? I don't think I can do this anymore. Oh, I think it's only the men. Did you give up at some point? And so actually determining for yourself, having a plan and working with that plan, developing yourself, and make sure you follow through. And I liked exactly what you had said about, and I think also for me as a HR person, stop self-selecting. Because sometimes you call the person and say, do you know what, I have this opportunity for you, and I think you can do it. And say, oh, no, I don't want to. Just leave me in my space. I think I know, sorry, well, no, why didn't you give it a try? I will help you with developmental materials. But how many people actually grasp that opportunity and run with it? So this has really been interesting. And food for thought for a lot of young people and a lot of people, even at different ages, who are still trying to make that decision. Do I make that switch? Is it too late? Can I do it? And so, thank you very much, Adeyanju. I'm going to go straight to you, Shola. What does the glass ceiling mean to you? Do you even believe there's a glass ceiling? And in your sector, does it exist? And I'd just like you to share examples of, have there been opportunities where you've been able to share a culture of inclusivity, and support for your women colleagues? And I want to tie it to what Adeyanju has said when she said, how do we connect intergenerationally? How do we support each other? And what advice would you give to young women who are aspiring to reach, senior management roles?
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a lot packed in there.
Absolutely.
But just to say again, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be on the panel and amongst, such strong ladies. I think for me, the first thing is, does a glass ceiling exist? Adeyanju has said it is glass, and we've shattered it so many times. But I think whether by complicity or just inadvertently, it's as if there's a super glue that keeps, somebody sneaks through, shatters it, and then it gets patched up again. So what does the glass ceiling mean to me? For me, it's twofold. There's the metaphorical ceiling, which is glass, which really it isn't a physical existence. You don't see it, but there's several barriers that can be put in the path of a woman in life generally, whether it's work life, business, political life, cultural expectations that have been put on us. Security as a woman, making strides on your own. There's so many things that we have to worry about because we may see ourselves as vulnerable to particular risks that men are not vulnerable to. So there's that metaphorical ceiling, and there is the psychological one, which is innate in all of us, whether you call it imposter syndrome or just being afraid to step outside our comfort zone, being afraid to put ourselves out there, and more importantly, being afraid to fail. And for me, I think that this ceiling is the stronger one, and that's the one that we've put on ourselves, because a lot of professional women, or a lot of women generally, want to succeed at work, we want to succeed in building our homes, we want to succeed in living enriched, thriving lives. We put so much pressure on ourselves, and we want to achieve a certain level of perfection that in itself almost becomes a deterrent to taking risks with our careers, with our businesses, and moving forward. So two types of ceiling exist to me. One, we keep shattering it and it keeps getting sealed back before the next person goes through. And then there's the one that is internal to us. So yes, it does exist. Now, have I experienced it? I think my very first encounter at what could be a challenge to me in the workplace, being a woman, was I got on a role in the bank, and soon after, maybe about 3-4 months into probation, I got pregnant. And there was a condition in my contract that apparently you couldn't get pregnant during probation, which I knew, but I took the job anyway, knowing I had just gotten married. And I did thankfully get pregnant. And when I was told that I had to resign, I thought, this is unfair. I know it's in the contract, so it's, as a lawyer, I know what the terms of a contract are. But I just went back to management at the time and said, you know what, I'm not going to resign. You need to sack me, terminate my employment. And I thought it would be good grounds to just continue to go to court every day, just arguing this case out as an unfair contract term. But I pushed back. I perhaps had the comfort of knowing that if I was out of a job, there was a safety net. There was a husband to at least feed me and, give me money to get to court to defend my case. But I felt that it was a very important thing to do at the time. Eventually, we had a female CEO in the bank at that time, one of the very early ones. And when she called me, she goes, "What's this about?" And I told her. She says, go and continue your work. When it's time for you to go on maternity leave, take maternity leave, forget about this. But it was a woman. I had a female boss and a female MD, and both of them collaborated to ensure that I was the first example who did not have to leave her job in the bank because of getting pregnant during probation. Eventually, probation was paused. I went to maternity, came back, and continued, and it was all paid. So, that particular ceiling was shattered in that scenario, but other ceilings replaced it, right? This fact that, you don't want to recruit a woman because or she's going to go on mat leave, or she's going to be cranky. Some men colleagues don't necessarily want to work with women because we're apparently hyper emotional, and we can wear our emotions a bit too vividly. All of those things are different types of ceilings that can limit the growth of a woman. Now, for me, creating a culture that includes women in the workplace, it's very important. And I approach it I'm a very organic person. I don't like a lot of structure around me. So for me, is that as a leader and as a woman in the workplace, I try to create an environment around me that makes me very approachable and open to people coming to have conversations with me. I also discuss a lot about the challenges that women have in their career, because I think a lot of times people, even women who have not perhaps gone through that, whose journeys have been different from others, don't understand the struggles of a young mother, don't understand the struggles of a woman who's trying to get a second degree with her first one just to advance herself. So having conversations with colleagues, both men and women, across the board helps to create that level of understanding and tolerance and even empathy towards what women go through in the workplace. I'm almost forgetting all the other questions now, but I'll just keep my flow going, please. So please stop me when you want me to stop. I think that helps. And also, constantly being available to pull other women out. I think giving honest feedback, a lot of us, there is the imposter syndrome that we all suffer. I think it's been acknowledged now that we all carry a bit of it. But a lot of us carry it, we wear it like a heavy cloak. And it just takes somebody pushing you and nudging you out of your comfort zone. And being that person for other women is very important to me. Creating the opportunities, giving the room for women to grow, and also moving on out of my space so that I can create space for other women. Mentoring helps, sponsorship helps, but just that general feedback and constantly being able to tell ladies that, look, you have to work hard. We can complain and wear purple, like you just said, forever. But if we're not ready to take on the opportunities, if we haven't prepared ourselves to be put out there, if we haven't made ourselves visible, if we haven't allowed our work to speak for us, if we haven't built a personal brand that shows that we can be efficient and effective in the workplace, if we haven't shown that we can cope and balance our lives and our work and our politics and our side hustle and all of that, it's a constant shift. And also the realization that at some stage in our careers, things will slow down. And then embracing that time and growing with that time so that when that time passes, we're able to take on other opportunities and put ourselves out there. And absolutely, always put your hand up for any opportunity. Say yes first. And if you fail at it, it's okay. You've just learned. If you do the interviews and you don't get picked, you've just honed your interview skills. It's okay to fail. It's okay to fall. It's okay to stumble. We need to learn to pick ourselves up. We need to learn to support our, colleagues, ladies around us who have fallen or tripped. Just stretch a helping hand, support and encourage. Should I stop, Faith?
Yes, thank you. But I think you answered all the questions. You actually tackled them. When you have spoken about the experience, when you were pregnant, I'd also had colleagues who had, similar challenges. Even growing, starting out during our careers, early careers, where they have said, oh, you can't get pregnant. If you have your first child, you have to wait 2 years or 3 years. So there's this law around when you should even have your children. I've had colleagues and friends who had actually resigned from their jobs because they got pregnant within maybe 6 months or a year of, joining an organization. So a lot of women have actually gone through some of these challenges. But what you had also said about, supporting and encouraging ourselves, where, telling people you need to come out of your comfort zone. You need to be able to work hard. You must work hard. You must build your personal brand. You must do the work. So nobody's going to say, oh, because you're a woman, you need to take this role, or no, nobody's going to do that. The important thing is that you do the work, you work hard, you build yourself, you develop yourself. And when there are challenging roles, take it up. It's okay to fail. You will learn from the failure. It doesn't make you, it just means that you learn from this mistake and you will grow with it. And then you had also mentioned, having those conversations with colleagues, both men and women. So instituting that culture. So, and I know I'll give the example of male colleagues here, where you can't say, oh, because we're having an interview, I want to hire someone, and say, oh, because she's a woman. That's not going to happen. we're going to be looking at the competence. Does the person actually have the competence for the role? We've had here several times at Avon where we've hired people who are pregnant, and the person says, oh, do you know what? Oh, can I resume my so because I'm pregnant? And I say, well, does that affect your doing the job? I say, no, I can work very well. Then please come on board, resume at this date. And it's worked so far. When it's time for me to go on maternity leave, that should not be any barrier in any way. And so we have colleagues who interview, who are also male colleagues on the panel, and everybody agrees. So it's the culture. I mean, you have to be deliberate about some of these things that you do. You know, building that culture where they understand that no, being pregnant, being a woman, shouldn't affect how the person's career. So thank you very much, Shola, for your insight into this very interesting topic. Chidima, I'm going to come straight to you with the same questions. We also want to get your view on your own understanding of the glass ceiling and how, what strategies have you had to support women and helping them overcome some of these challenges they may have faced or are currently facing? And what advice will you give to aspiring young women, who are trying to build their careers?
Thank you very much, Faith, and hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. So I will speak from my industry experience, and I would start by saying that it is undeniable that the glass ceiling persists, particularly within the energy sector where I work. Some call it the oil and gas sector. It is actually very interesting over here. So recently, I encountered statistic quite similar to what Adeyanju had spoke about. It was from the International Energy Agency, and it highlighted that women constitute only 22% of the workforce, and a mere 12% of these women are in senior management roles, right? And this discrepancy in the workforce creates an invisible barrier that prevents us women from advancing in the highest levels of leadership, decision-making in our careers, irrespective of our competence level, our achievements, qualifications, and all we have garnered over the years. So this said, the glass ceiling to me is, like Faith had mentioned, a metaphor of multitude invisible barriers, whether psychological, like the last speaker spoke, or whether innate or intentional, that sort of like prevents us women, whether qualified or not talented women, from achieving our full potential and rising to the leadership positions within the organizations that we work. And it is a reminder that there is a need for a systemic change to dismantle not just this overt obstacle, but also the subtler, innate, entrenched biases that perpetuate gender disparity in our workplace. And please permit me to reflect on my earlier days, when I started off. I know you had mentioned it's 10 years, but actually it is 10 years in the HH group, and I have 6 years from my previous life. So as a young process safety engineer, I started off, and I was having a meeting with my male colleagues, obviously male because at the time, I was the only female in my department, and we were supposed to be discussing a specific project that we were working on at the time. And I found myself being asked to go make coffee, for everyone, while the men went on to discuss the technical details, on the project. This was a conversation I was not only qualified to be a part of at the time, but I should have actually been leading, given my role and expertise. At that moment, it became clear that despite my qualifications, capabilities, educational background, and all, there were invisible barriers dictating how I was perceived as a woman and what roles I was, expected to fulfill in the workspace. So the men in the room didn't even realize that they had expressed their bias through that request. And to them, it was just a harmless, simple request that, they were unaware of the implications of this action in the workspace. So faced with this sort of situation, I just knew silence was only going to reinforce this sort of stereotype. So I had to stand up for myself, and not just for myself, but for all women who have found themselves in such a marginalized way, whether in the energy sector or outside of my sector. So what I did was I just simply politely refused to make the coffee. And I said to them, Chidema is not making any coffee for you. I literally just nicely redirected the conversation back to the technical matter we had at hand. And I made sure that, during that conversation, I highlighted the importance of everyone's contributions, irrespective of the agenda. I managed to explain to the men how much such requests, although seemingly small and benign, perpetuate a culture where women are seen as less capable of contributing to technical conversations. So to my surprise, that particular comment sort of like opened a broader dialogue, and we nearly didn't even discuss the technical matter at hand. So we opened up this whole conversation about unconscious biases in the workspace, the importance of creating an inclusive work environment where everyone's contributions are valued equally. And these guys, many of whom didn't even realize the impact of that request, they were quite receptive of that conversation, and it was a moment of learning for them and everyone in the room. And this made me understand that it is very important for us to call out biases when it occurs. Don't let it slide. Mention it, whether nicely, just mention it. And so there are many other instances where gender bias or the ceiling was placed on the table for me, and I strongly believe that this glass ceiling actually exists. But thankfully, at Hares Energies, where I currently work, we promote diversity, inclusion, and however, within the wider sector where I work, we're still dealing greatly with systemic barriers that perpetuate gender equalities. So I noted two other questions you asked, and on the other question around the strategy to be deployed in ensuring that this barrier is not in place, I would just simply say that competency is 1, competency is 2, and competency is 3, top on my list. And I would say developing competency and becoming the subject matter in your role are actually very key strategy that could be deployed by us women in ensuring that this barrier is broken. You see, when you excel in your domain, your performance will just speak volumes and will create a reputation for reliability and expertise that can transcend any gender bias or stereotype that might be in place. And competency is that thing that makes you the go-to person, the one person whose name comes up in discussions, even in your absence. Someone needs something done in an organization and they're saying, okay, I need to speak to someone in Avon who can get this thing done very quickly for me. And Atinike's name comes up, you're able to understand that Atinike has the competency to be able to get this thing done. That is what competency does for you. And I like to say to my people that competence breeds confidence, right? When you know your stuff or your onion, like we say, your confidence naturally elevates. And this confidence is not just simply about feeling good about yourself or looking good. I mean, that's part of it, but it is actually a critical tool that we need to get around our workspace and even further promote our visibility as women. I will also add that, you see, confidence, or rather competence, actually helps you with your confidence, and it gives you the resilience to be able to shatter this ceiling that we are talking about. I know a lot of people talk about mentorship, networking. That is great, but I believe that mentorship and networking are great for your career growth. But what really sets you apart is actually your competence. That's what makes you, sets you apart from the next person in the room. It makes you the candidate who cannot be overlooked for promotions or leadership roles, because your contributions are critical to the success of either your team or the organization where you work. So for me, competence is key in shattering that specific ceiling. So to young women out there that are, like the streets would say, eyeing senior management roles, I would like to say, be authentic. And they say, be you, the world will adjust, right? So I would say authenticity is something else that can actually also set you apart in the workspace. Imagine authenticity and then also building on your competence and expertise. I would also add, develop your skills, whether it is your hard skills, your soft skills, and also learn to advocate for yourself in your workspace. If you do not speak up for yourself, nobody would, right? Advocate for yourself, seek out mentors, build a strong network, and you learn daily. Albert Einstein said, when we stop learning, we die, right? So I would say learn daily. Unlearn where you need to unlearn, relearn where you need to learn, and ask questions. I'm Igbo, and my people would say, the man who asks questions never misses the pathway. So I would also lastly add that we as women should learn to be assertive in our workspace. Be assertive, but do that with empathy. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Chidima. That was actually a lot to think about, especially for I think for everyone, even as we go along in our careers. I kind of liked what you said about competence, and I think it's also the same thing Shola and Adeyanju had said. You need to build your competence. You said competence builds confidence. It's nothing, nobody's going to just hand it to you. You must build yourself. So you must develop yourself. It is really important. And be authentic, Speak for yourself, assert yourself. But you had said something, even though you're asserting yourself, also do it with empathy. I liked also the fact that you mentioned those invisible barriers. I think sometimes I think the men don't even know that there's an unconscious bias. So the way you had managed it, and actually just spoke up for yourself and said, no, I'm not doing this. That's not why I'm here. And they actually sat down to think about it. And as you said, it actually became almost like the main topic of discussion for that day. So it's not being afraid to assert yourself and speak up for yourself. But at the same time, remember that you have to build yourself. You have to learn. You have to network. You have to ask questions. And so it's important that you know that when they're looking for, there's a role to be filled, they're not saying, they're talking about gender diversity, just give it to her. No, it's a case of she is the most qualified person in the room, And before I go to our other panelists, I just want to also hear your thoughts on what Adeyanju had said, Shola and Chidima had said. So Atunike, just to get your feedback on what has been said so far before I actually come to you to ask, other questions. What do you think?
It really is interesting because I almost feel as though we all sat together, had some kind of discussion, and then came to say, you will take this portion and you will speak about that portion. It's just a reiteration of where our minds are at. And that for me is comfort that we are actually on the right trajectory. I see two questions now and two schools of thought. There is a probing question about, does this feeling still exist? Adeyanju put that out there. And she almost dared to say, it probably doesn't. Because in the words of William Johnson, he's an American painter, he said, if it is to be, it is up to me. And to think like that goes beyond even recognizing his feelings. And I know we have spoken about, philosophers and just people who have really added to the wealth of knowledge now. But I'll take it back to Aristotle, who says, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act, but a habit. So when you have such thoughts and you are guided by such notions, it really begs the question about how we want to deal with this unacknowledged barrier called the glass ceiling. So I'll just leave it there for it to be more probing. And perhaps if you come to me, I'd just speak through, whatever questions you have for me. But I am really enjoying what I'm hearing so far. Chidima's experience in her industry is particularly unique because she's a minority in a male-centric industry, engineers. So she'll feel it probably more. I hear Adeyanju as well, who is actually challenging that glass ceiling to say, I hear you, I see you, but if it is to be, it is up to me, and trust me, no glass ceiling is going to hold me down. Looking at the statistics from the 14500, You know, when you said in 2022 it was 9 points, I wrote it down. Hold on, please, Adeyanju, help me. Yes, 9.2.
9.4.
9.4. Oh, nice. So the little girl in me was saying, Adeyanju, I have an update. I have an update. I have the 2023 figures. Because 2023 is 10.4. And that's just 1% on top of it. However, linking that to if it is to be is up to me. In 2000, there were just 2 women. Smacking a decade on that, it became 16 women. Smacking another decade, it became 37 women. Today we have 52 women. So really, if it is to be, girl, it is up to me. So I see that glass ceiling, but am I the underdog, or do I see this as an opportunity? So I'll leave that food for thought while I yield the floor back to Faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Atinuke, and thank you for the statistics. But I like the fact that I say, yes, the glass ceiling is likely there, but just as Adeyanju and other panelists have said, it's not going to stop anyone. It's not going to stop them. And so if it's not stopping them, it shouldn't stop you either, you know? And it just, I think that, I don't think, maybe speaking to what Shola had said, it's really never going to go away, you know, but how do you tackle it? I mean, where do you see yourself? How do you want to, depending on what sector you find yourself and the cultural situation you find yourself, what is the best way to, handle that situation? What do you need to do? And so taking all the experiences, I mean, what you've heard today in terms of building your self-confidence, asserting yourself, you know, and just not taking no for an answer, you know, just thinking through and even getting a mentor, someone to support you and guide you on your journey, you know, those are just different areas and things to reflect on as you go ahead in your career journey. And I want to go back to you, Adeyanju, to just also, based on what has been said so far, you know, what are your thoughts? What do you think so far? And we're just commenting on the experiences that have been shared so far now, you know, on this webinar.
It's been quite interesting and diverse, and you know, with the last comments by Atinuke, I almost felt like, oh my God, I need to don on, you know, the clothes of an activist, because I was just like, right, let's even, and in my mind was just reeling that, okay, when you think of a ceiling, that means there's a house or a room or something. Do we need to be in that room? Because we've been talking about this ghastly, let's come out of the room. Let's build another house. Let's make it without ceilings or what have you, you know, and so many things were just going on, you know, in my head. But the thing is, it is reality. You know, on the one hand, it is metaphorical. On the other hand, it is as real, like I said, as my hair color. It is so real. I mean, Chidima's experience, my eyes, you know, almost popped out. And I also remember another situation that I had. I worked in an FMCG company, and it was male dominated. We were in a, you know, review meeting with the CEO, and it was all function heads and, you know, direct reports. I was a function head then reporting directly to the CEO. And this gentleman, you know, we were waiting, you know, before the meeting started, and I was doing some work, and someone just, who was a friend, and providing some context, you know, for it, he was a direct report of a peer. So to all intents and purposes, he could have been reporting to me. And he turns and says, Mama, there are no drinks in the cooler. The very first word just triggered me. And I said, you know what? I dropped my boys off in school this morning, and you know, he was laughing, you know, saying, but you know, you're the mother of, and that was another, it just kept digging a hole. You're the mother of us all. And I've said, no, I know my kids, you're not one of them. And he says, okay, there are no drinks. And I looked at the cooler, I said, you know, yeah, there are no drinks. So what? But he could not, you know, because with the path I was doing, he couldn't say anything, but everybody understood. And people were like, okay, come off your high horse, help us organize. I mean, for me, it was just a sheer effrontery. I am at the same level as your boss, and you're coming in a very subtle way, making it jovial to say there are no drinks. Should I get up to go and sort out everybody? So he just, kept quiet. And when he was almost at the door, I lifted my head, from my PC and said, "Oh, could you please help me with a Coke Zero, cold one, please?" As nicely as possible. For me, how that conversation ended was important, and also to send a signal that, there's certain things that are just not right. There were so many people in the room. I think, was I the only female? Maybe there was just 2 or 3 of us, but you now decided and zeroed on me. And I did get the Coke Zero, and I had a lovely drink, and I said, a big thank you. So it exists, but to what Chidima said, it's important to change the narrative, one conversation, one situation at a time. Yes, it is tough. Yes, it is annoying. Yes, it is. You can describe it, however you want it. But not just it being done to you, but you seeing it as well, calling it out, having those conversations and saying, sorry, this is not right. This is not proper. This same person that you're asking to go make the coffee is as intelligent, if not more intelligent, than half the people in the room. So for me, it's us being, conscious that this is what we're having to deal with, and this is the, the destination or the goal or the outcome that we want. And it has to be every interaction that we keep expanding, and breaking those barriers, and also, changing those mindsets and the biases, the conscious and the very unconscious ones, changing those mindsets and ensuring that we are creating, an enabling world for those who are coming behind us, and also enforcing that, look, like I said, this bird has been flying on one wing. It has 2 wings. We are not part of one wing. We are the second wing. So we need to make sure that society flies well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adeyanju. Really interesting that I think we've had that experience, one experience or the other, when there's some meeting or some event, automatically they just zero in on one of the females and said, oh, we don't have this, we don't have that, we don't have cups, we don't have this, and somehow they just automatically expect you to know how to sort it out. It's also, it comes down to even the culture. The way, we raise our children, the way we raise our boys, where they expect, anything that has to do with food or just taking care of the home is the woman automatically. So, of course, they take this to the workplace and just expect that this should also happen in the workplace. But just as you had said, calling it out is important every single time it happens, whether it happens to you or a female colleague who is not speaking up, and just calling it out there and then. So immediately, begin to break that bias. Odiri, I just also want to get your point of view on what's been said so far.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Interesting conversation. And a lot has been said. For me, glass ceiling, if you have asked me probably what's my take on glass ceiling, probably before this conversation, I'll probably say it exists. But to a large extent, I think that the glass ceiling is really a function of how we view the world. Because each of us have our own perspective. We listen to Chidima and her, experience working in a heavily dominated industry. You might have someone working in a less male-dominated industry, and they'll probably have a very different experience. So for me, glass ceiling comes in different form and different shapes and sizes. It's just a function of how we see the world and how we choose to react to it to a large extent. Speaking from my own experience, I remember when I was appointed as group CFO, I wasn't given any monetary reward. So I went to my line manager and I said, yeah, this promotion should come with something, higher than what I'm currently earning, and he said, what do I need money for? After all, I have a husband. So to a large extent, I was taken aback, really. I probably didn't know how to react to that kind of statement, because I really, really wasn't expecting it. This is 2020, 2019 or 2017. This is not, those stone age that you are saying because I have a husband, I shouldn't earn more, or I shouldn't be paid what I'm worth. So to a large extent, we have glass ceiling experience in our biases and stereotypes being projected, and somebody talked about calling it out, which is very good. Sometimes you can call it out, sometimes you're not able to call it out, but I think that, particularly for younger women who are aspiring to senior level position, the truth is it exists in its form. It exists in different form, whatever you want to call it. Maybe for us as those of us already there, maybe it's important for us to also share experience, because sometimes when people look at us, they say, no, I'm not sure this person went through any of this, thing that I'm going through. But the truth is we all went through it in a different form. And sometimes we choose to ignore it. Sometimes we choose to address it. I remember one of my colleagues, not a line manager, but just on the same level. And I told him I was going for, I was just taking maybe 2 weeks going on vacation, and he said, don't come to work pregnant. For me, that was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. But that is zone bias and stereotype. Yes, you are a senior level executive, but you're still a wife, you're still a woman. So the key thing for me, really, when I think about glass ceiling, is really, yes, he exists in his form, but we can choose to ignore it. But the most important one I think that we should pay attention to is the barrier that we create for ourselves. There are structural barriers. There are barriers that are created by organizations. There are barriers that are created by the people who work in the organization, who run the organization. But more importantly, there are barriers that we create ourselves. Somebody talked about, psychological barriers or psychological syndrome, which is what the internal barriers that we struggle with. And to a large extent, I think that is what is holding us back as women. Because if we can solve that to a large extent, we can push the needle much faster than the structural barriers or the organizational barriers, that exist. Because no one will solve the glass ceiling problem for us. No one. There is no one, no matter how he or she, that person is. No one will actually solve this problem for us. We have to solve it ourselves. And it begins with our own internal structure, how we view ourselves. A lot of women, no matter how competent they are, struggle with confidence. They struggle with confidence. We call it imposter syndrome, whatever name we call it. It is just our own internal battles, saying whether we are good enough, we're not good enough, even when we know that we are the most competent in that room. I remember, because I've been in United Capital for 16 years. So I started from the low-level analyst, and I've grown to become CEO of one of the business within this group. So I've seen a lot. I've heard a lot. I've experienced a lot. I've been thrown a lot of things. But I realized that one of the most defining strategy really is confidence. I remember when I was appointed as CEO in 2019, I always say, but they've told me to stop saying from nowhere. I wasn't told to apply for the job. I was called upon. I was group CFO then. I was called upon, that chairman has said, that, I should go and run the asset management business. For the first few months, I was running away from my office because I didn't think I was good enough for the job. I was ready for the job, or even competent enough to handle the job. The truth is, when you give somebody the opportunity to apply for a job and you go through that process, that you get to a point where you feel you deserve it, I worked for it. But when you call somebody and say, because I've seen what you've done over the years, I don't even need to interview you already, go and do the job. That person will struggle with what made them make this decision. What did they see in me that they say, those kind of things. And to a large extent, it is us women who struggle with that more. The guy don't ask themselves that question. They say, yeah, because I'm competent. I know I'm competent. That's why I was called upon to do it. But for the woman, she will struggle with that. And so for the first few months, I was running away from my office, because I didn't think I was competent until somebody said to me, Odiri, it doesn't matter how you got there. You know, the most important thing that you are there. So make the best use of it. You know, and it's like the screw in my brain that came off, you know, reset. You know, and I sat down and I had to even talk to myself. But that is the truth. Most of us, no matter how competent, I had a CFA, you know, CFA charter holder, first class, MBA, ICANN. So what else now do you think you need and you still feel that you are unqualified? So really the biggest barrier for us, you know, and what is really making that glass ceiling seem as if, you know, it keeps going off and being reglued and things like that is really our confidence, you know, and we need to really address that. You know, and then the second thing I would say is really how we groom women for leadership position. It is completely different from how you groom a man. You can't put a man and a woman together and say you are grooming them for a leadership position and you use the same curriculum. It won't work. The man will definitely get to that job faster than the woman because there are a lot of things that she's battling with, and those things have to form part of the curriculum. Yes, you know, so the leadership program that we run for male and female has to change. It has to align with the way a woman is structured. I talked about her confidence issue. That is part of our leadership grooming. You know, because I had a boss who was earning 2 times or 3 times my salary. When I was given his position, you know, I wasn't earning up to that. Yet when he was in that position, he said, I'm not well paid. I'm not well paid. They're not paying me well. When I got there, I said, thank God, though. Anything you give me, I'll take. Anything you give me, I'll take. You know, and you know, it was later when I started thinking about it and looking, I said, come on, Odiri. This is somebody who was doing this same job and feels that he's not even well paid. You know, he needs more money. And you sitting on this same thing, doing the same job and probably even doing it better, you are grateful to God for what they have given to you. So it's all about how you groom a woman for leadership position. It is very critical. It's very, very critical. It helps her build confidence. It helps her even negotiate her value, know her value, you know, and be able to articulate it to a large extent. And then one other thing I want to say, you know, somebody talked about competence, and I think that is really, really critical for us as women. You know, a woman has to show that she is 10 times better than a man, you know, for a job. 2 of you are delivering good results. If they are making noise about that result, they will emphasize that of the man, except yours is exceptionally better than the man. And it is not because they don't feel that you're good enough or they don't like you. We just need to understand that in this world as a whole and in this system as a whole, and particularly in the workplace, that bias is there, that stereotype is there. It shows up even when people are not even aware. You know, so the best way to even the playing field is to be so good, so good at what you do that you cannot be ignored. If you are at par, you will be ignored. If you are below, you will be ignored. But if you are far, you cannot be ignored. You know, so competence is really critical for us as women. There was a study that was done that men are hired for their potential. Women are hired, you know, for what they've done, for their capability. So you're hiring a man because you think he can do it, you know, and you are hiring a woman because you have seen evidence, you know, she has demonstrated time and time again that she can do it. You know, so the level playing field, you know, has to show that for you as a woman and for us as women, you know, we have to do 10 times more than what the men are doing. And then lastly, I wanted to say is, you know, women supporting women. You know, and I know that this conversation, you know, rovers around the fact that women don't support women enough. You know, whether that is true or not, that's not the subject of debate. But I think the onus is on us to be intentional, you know, and also to pay attention to that subtle bias. You know, when Adora was appointed as CEO of Access Bank, you know, I almost wanted to say, can she do the job? And that's the truth. If it's a man, you would never ask that kind of question. So it's not really a case of whether you believe that she can do the job or not, but there is that unconscious fear that says, this position is a big one. Can she do the job? So we find ourselves asking that question, not because of we don't believe or we're not supporting, but it's just there. It's an unconscious bias. And so that's why I said we have to be intentional in supporting women, because at the end of the day, if we really need to push more women to senior level positions and top positions and break that glass ceiling, it has to be done en masse. The reason why there is you chatter and then you glue it back is because it's just very few people going there. Imagine if we all go there en masse. That thing will scatter. It will not even be able to glue itself because it's pieces, that will be picking up from the floor. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Odiri. Your experience and your journey, actually, you really had an interesting journey. And I think one of the things that struck me was actually the self-doubt. And self-doubt was not because you were not, you didn't have the qualification, but just believing in yourself and knowing you could take that challenge. And the truth is that you probably would have, so sometimes when you don't have that confidence, some people just shy away and just want to stay in their comfort zone and say, no, let me just do the one I know. And so it was also good that you were asked to take it. It wasn't a quick case of, oh, can you do it? And they said, no, we know you can do it. And they actually were put in. So you were actually forced to take on that role and then to see that you actually do well on that role. So, building that confidence is important, building yourself, believing in yourself. At the same time, while doing that, also building your competence. But there was something you said that gave me cause for worry, where you had said, and maybe other members of the panel can also, speak on this, where you have said, oh, for a woman, you have to be way ahead of the man in terms of your competence. You have to do more. So you can't be apart. So if you're apart with the man, they'll most likely pick the man. So you must actually have to stretch yourself and do more. While the man just says, so, well, do you know what? This is where I am. And just kind of expects that he'll be given the role. So, I'd like to hear from, any member of the panel who'd like to speak on this.
Can I go first?
Yes, it's correct.
I love the authenticity of Odiri's journey. And I would not take away from it or add to it. I saw the journey of someone who started, climbed through the ladders, and she has seen what her industry, vis-a-vis her work environment, and the things she had to do, the things she had to sacrifice to hold to get her to where she is. And I think that's one of the things I love about this panel. I love this diversification of this panel. You're going to hear me talk and you're going to see how so different my narrative is going to be from Odiri's narrative. But it doesn't take away the authenticity of her truth. What I take from what she said to how she has been able to break the glass ceiling. In fact, when Odiri started and Odiri said, I'm the CEO of asset management, I said, what's the glass ceiling now? Sister, you've broken it. Every other person is below the glass ceiling. You are the one person that has broken it. Only for me to then hear her go into her truths and realities, it was such an eye-opener. And the one thing I took away from her is that to break this glass ceiling, she almost had to say, I'm not saying I'm the best, but I'm asking who is better. Which means she had to be, I don't know, Odiri 2.0 Pro Max. But then that is her reality. And it is an interesting reality I hear. And how she had to get there was to be better than even the best. And for me, it's just food for thought. It's humbled me enough to see that where I thought I had the absolute vision and truth of this is how to go about it, Odiri's narrative stopped me in my tracks to see that there are actually different perspectives to this. But one thing rings true with everybody. There has to be the discipline, there has to be the consistency, there has to be the focus on your focus, there has to be the authenticity, and you take the opportunity to, like in Chidima's case, the teaching moment when you have to teach and not play the underdog. So that's what I'd add to layer on what Odire has said. Very different from my narrative, but it's a truth nonetheless.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Atinuke. I want to take a comment here. Tokini. Tokini said, absolutely true. Leadership training curriculum for men and women should be different to accommodate all women. To accommodate all women need to deal with in their lives. This is actually true. Thank you, Tokini, for that. Just to let our participants know, we're still waiting for Q&A questions. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask any member of the panelists, please put it in the chat box, and then we'll certainly answer the question. Atunke, I'm coming straight back to you. Would like to know, could you just share your personal experience of overcoming self-doubt on the path to leadership? How did you do that? And of course, could you just also, any more advice you want to give young women, who are aspiring to reach senior management roles, and even taking into cognizance what Odiri had said? Really interesting conversation. Thank you.
Food for thought indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to break mine into very simple milestones, but it's my truth nonetheless. In SS1, I was made to repeat a class because I changed school. But it was an interesting transition. I was to start in the new school in second term. In fact, I had started in the new school in second term in SS2, but I was struggling. And I believe I'm quite smart, but I wasn't doing too well because the school I was in prior was not as good. So here I was, this young, impressionable little girl who had already entered a new school, stranger, and was now being made to repeat. For me, it was a lot to handle. It was a lot to deal with. But something snapped in my brain. I guess it was my first reality that you don't always get what you want in life. And it was the first time I had to sit up and wake up to dealing with what I believed at the time was the end of the world. So this thing snapped, and I told myself, I had that conversation with self. I probably was 13 or 14 at the time. And I said, if I am going to repeat this class, I damn better be the best in it. And I held on to that. I was taken back to SS1, totally new strangers. And I said, in everything I do in this repeated class, because I felt I was just better than everybody there. I was not supposed to be here in the first place. And I put in my everything. Now, remember when I said I was a smart student? I was probably a B+ kind of girl. But when I repeated that class, I said, line, B is not my portion. I'm better than everybody here. And up until I left that school, I was a straight A student, all because, for want of a better word, that inner pride that I've been made to repeat. No, that actually set the foundation for where I am today. Because it's almost been an underdog. Either I look at myself as the underdog, or I see this as an opportunity. So I've done 18 years in my career. A reasonable portion of that was as an attorney because I practiced as a lawyer. And then now I'm co-operational. The first 2 years I coasted. I was in a law firm, corporate commercial, nothing fancy. And then that law firm decided to open a new branch or a new division, which was the company secretarial division. For some reason, they just saw us all as, I don't know, the really poor cousins. And we were not sitting on the beautiful, juicy transactions, and we now had to go and scout for new clients. And we didn't really enjoy going to work. And that thing that snapped in my head in SS1 came back again. So this is where I am now, Abi. No problem. No problem. I'm going to be the best at whatever this is. It was company secretarial and corporate governance, which was pretty much kind of new at the time. The people who owned it back in the day were probably now outsourced to the consultants, the PwCs and whatnot. And now law firms were breaking away to have, the secretarial arm. So I said I was going to do this secretarially like nobody has ever done before. Mine would be secretarial with a stop. So if they give me a company as the company secretary, I would tell myself that I'm going to have a meeting with the chairman. I called it a meeting before the meeting. Prep him and prepare him. There was nothing in company secretarial that was like that. But I said these were the things. In that my young age with my small head, I said these were the things I was going to do as the, not looking at myself as the underdog, but in this new division now where I'll be telling you the people I hobnob with. Like joke. I hobnob with Shoneko. I hobnob with Tony Elumelu. I hobnob with ETC. And it was this attitude to the work that Tony Elumelu noticed me. Came on board, then they were having this thing about 51% of foreign entities must be owned by Nigerians. The local content bill came out at the time. And he found himself as a 51% holder of the second largest drilling company in the world that had presence in Nigeria. And so I did him this email introducing myself and saying we have the first meeting, but I had to bring him abreast. I think out of curiosity, because this is a seasoned corporate governance person in his own right, wanted to see what I was all about. And little skinny me then got his appointment, went with him, gave him a brief on the things that were outstanding, the things he should look at, the excuses he would probably hear. I practically told him how his meeting was going to go before he even entered the meeting. They didn't send us that type of message. So again, tying it to, if it is to be, it's going to be up to me. And that explains why I really don't acknowledge that feeling. Because I treat it as this conversation, right, that I see, that I hear about, that people are having. But if I am ever in an underdog situation, I'm going to be the best with regards to whatever it's going to produce. So Tony Elumelu eventually hires me, right? He was supposed to hire me for a corporate governance role. In law firms, we are not the back-end people, we are the front-end people. And then he hires me, and for the first time in my career, I had done 10 years in a law firm then, I now became a back-end person. I didn't understand how to deal with it. I was hired as a corporate governance person, but when I resumed, I was now his special assistant. He had all these meetings. I was saying all these terminologies: institutionalization, democratization. Hey, I said problem. But that thing came again in my head. If it is to be, it is up to me. So I saw it as a new challenge. I got a lot of caution letters because I definitely was struggling and trying to keep up. But because of that attitude of having people there, be you a man, be you a woman, whatever it is, if it is to be, is up to me. And is this my reality? I am going to make lemon with lemonade. Probably sell lemon and buy shoes because I like shoes. And that attitude has transitioned up until where I am today. In the last 4 years, I have not practiced as an attorney because now I am a core operational person. It was a different reality because I was made the group head of client services to be head over seasoned client services people who knew that I knew that they were aware of the fact that I didn't know the job. And I had to head them. But if it is to be, it's up to me. I have always held that thing. So I said, you know what? How are we, TK, how are you going to make these people happy? And how are you going to turn around what it is, the mandate is from management? I had to do a lot of reading. For the first time, I probably had to learn humility because I did have to go through my subordinates to teach me. I started learning on leadership is servitude. But because I was guided by if it is to be, I knew the ultimate goal of what I was trying to achieve. So, thanks to Faith's question about how I have been able to overcome doubt in my career path starting, you could start from post NYSC. I will start from SS1 because I remember that was the first time I probably grew up overnight. When there is a new first, I am not going to be a victim. And I am not going to be the underdog. I will look for the opportunity and I will rise with, pardon, sorry, I'm a Christian, with Jesus' joy. That takes consistency, it takes discipline, and most importantly for me, authenticity. Nobody ever beats you at the game of authenticity. If you are authentic to self, you're a consistent person, you develop yourself, and you are disciplined. Trust me, that feeling would be would be just that, a feeling, a noun, a word. I have not in my career acknowledged it because I really don't see it. I have had opportunities to always see myself as the underdog, but I look at that line and I make beautiful lemonade and I thrive in it. So,
Sorry, Atinuke, you've muted yourself, I think, or someone has
oh,
muted you.
wow.
I can't hear you anymore.
How
Okay,
many seconds did you
Atinuke,
lose me?
thank you, Atinuke. I'm even going to ask you, I'm going to have to stop you now, but thank you very
That's
much.
fine. I think you pretty
You
much
got
got
way,
the gist of
yeah,
it.
but
Yeah,
thank you, yeah.
yeah.
But thank you, Atinuke, taking on every challenge and the way you apply, applying yourself. I'm just not, you didn't let that, especially in secondary school, you didn't let that bring you down. But you said, I'm going to be the best person here. And so I'm going to make it worth my while. And then, you had spoken about not being the underdog, being authentic, consistent, be very disciplined and apply yourself, develop yourself. And so, of course, I know your journey, moving from being company secretariat to the group heads, retention and growth, and taking on that role, something you've never done before. And owning it as if you've always been there, I think it's really, honestly, it's actually very inspirational. And there are some questions here I want to quickly take. And we've actually spent quite some time. I work in a highly male-dominated space. Recently, my boss retired and I was promoted to his position. And I think similar to what had happened to Odiri, however, I am being offered less than what my boss was earning. My question is, how do I demand what is due me? Because I am very qualified for the role. I also have not accepted the role because of the offer attached to it. Who wants to take on that question?
Odiri, of course.
Sorry, I have
Sounds like
one
an
comment before Odiri goes. Just one comment.
Yes, please.
One comment. And again, we all need to be authentic and true to ourselves. My take is on the issue of pay. And a lot of times, we've come a long way. We need to pat ourselves on the back. Women have come a long way. But you see, a lot of times you need to consider the opportunity against the financial benefit and consider some roles springboard. I would accept the responsibility at less pay because I want to grow. Because I know whether on that job or at the next job, I'm going to get double what I should be getting. But to pass on an opportunity to experience a higher role is not something that I advocate. And, a lot of times, we come to the table as women grateful that we were given an opportunity. When we given the opportunity, we earned it. Nobody allowed a woman to become a board member. Nobody allowed a woman to become CEO. Nobody allows us to be. We be because we can be and because we have the capacity and the competence to be. But if there's a higher job responsibility in a structured environment, and it is a question, it comes down to money, have the money conversation 6 months after you've blown their minds. So please, for me, take the opportunity. It's a continuous growth process. You would prove yourself, you would have the opportunity to leverage on this position to get a better one next time, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Audrey, what do you think? Do you agree with Shola, or do you have a different perspective?
Yeah, to a large extent. Let me just build on what she has said. And the truth is, take the offer. In short, that's all I wanted to say. Take the offer. But she has said it. Take the offer. So I wanted to ask, you said the question is, how do I demand what is due to me? And the question I'm asking myself is, what is due to you? Is it a function of the value you're bringing to the table, or a function of what your former boss was earning? There are two different things. A lot of the time we think what is due to, I need to get what he was getting, that's what is due to me because I'm on that position. Now, for some structured organization, they do it, you get to that level, they just give you everything, associated with that level, including the salary and then the office. But other organizations will say you have to prove yourself. Don't forget you spent 5 years or 10 years to get to that level or that end pay that you're looking at. So the summary is take the job, take the offer. You're not taking it because, of the money. You're taking it because of what you will learn. I was group CFO for 15 months before I was appointed CEO. I was the youngest serving group CFO, and in short, I remember telling my group CEO then, I'm the cheapest group CFO of a public company because I wasn't even on a level where I was entitled to a company car. That's how low I was, on that level. I wasn't entitled to a company car. You get to a certain manager level that you're giving. I wasn't on that level, and I was giving group CFO of a public company. So I spent 15 months there, and where I am now, it's a different story. Even when I became the CEO, I wasn't even given the level, the amount that my former person there was earning. In short, I was the least paying CEO within the group. Today, I'm the highest paying within the group. It's a function of the value. At the end of the day, they see the value you bring. So don't base your worth based on what he was earning. There's a reasonable level of worth that they should give you. There is, and that's what you should demand for. But it shouldn't be a function of what that person was earning, because that person has spent years to be able to get to that level. You will get to that level, and eventually you will even get and surpass the salary that he was earning when he left. But ensure that what you are asking for is a function of value that you have and you're bringing to the table, not a function of what he was earning to say, because I'm now on his office, I must earn the same thing. No. But what you should demand for is a function of the value that you're bringing and your worth, for that particular role. But over time, even if they don't give you, take the offer. Not for what you get, but for what you will eventually become by being on that role. Thank you.
Thank you, Shola. Thank you, Audrey. Tokini, I hope they were able to tackle your question and you got some answers, your answer from those responses. Adeyanju, I'm going to come at you with some questions. 2 questions, actually. Can genuine inclusion lead to a workplace environment where the glass ceiling becomes obsolete? Can the glass ceiling ever end or stop to become a thing in the future? That's the first question. And second question, how can organizations move beyond simply talking about diversity and inclusion to actively create an inclusive workplace?
Faith, you know how to stack the questions. I will. Yes, I can't even remember that. I think you asked 3 or 4 questions. I can't remember the 4th.
2 questions. The first question was, can genuine, okay, so this is from our Q&A box. So
yes,
can genuine inclusion lead to a workplace environment where the glass ceiling itself becomes obsolete? And the person goes on to say, can the glass ceiling ever end or stop to become a thing in the future? And second question, how can organizations move beyond simply? Okay.
Can we stop
All right,
at the first, and then we'll come to that one? Yes, addressing the first 2 questions, from the participants. I will start from the rare, in the sense that, can the glass ceiling ever become something of the past? And I think, it's something that has been a recurring theme from all the speakers when it comes to the glass ceiling. Yes, we're saying it's metaphorical, it's invisible, it's this. It's there, but it's not there. but the internal barriers that, because that's you are largely, let me rephrase, you are largely in control of you and what it is that you can do. So I will say, start first with the internal barriers that you either consciously or unconsciously are placing. We'll come to the glass ceiling when we get there. Where exactly are you and what do you aspire to? I mean, for me, working in the organization, where I was, the ultimate for me was, the CEO level. And at some point, also realizing that, our pathways do not necessarily, they don't have to be linear all the time, that, I'll come from this, I'll move to that, and what have you. And when I realized the role that I was in, looking at the group, the organization was a member of a global group, 28 countries. I looked at the group and I was looking for someone who had transitioned from my function to the MD of the organization, and I couldn't come up with one person. The two people who had moved from my function moved into people and culture, or HR, and and they grew in that, from country to regional, and the one person actually became the group HR director. So it was important for me to realize that to actualize, my path, I had to make a decision. Either I left the organization or I took on a role that will position me, for general management. And I did take a leadership layer cut. I moved from being a report to the MD to reporting to a peer, but I knew where exactly, I wanted to go and how I could get there. This was an opportunity, for me, to get there. So for me, I would say that in hindsight, it was also a pathway to inclusion, because doing that, it opened the door. People realized that it was possible. You do not have to die in a particular function. You can move out. There are different pathways, for you to become, to get to the level that you want to get to. And with that, it brought up so many opportunities to foster inclusion. So I was leaving, I was actually entering the thick of a male-dominated, environment. In the leadership team, there were about there were three of us, there were three ladies out of a group of about 10 or thereabout. Now I moved into a situation where in the leadership team, I was the only one, so how do I ensure that my colleagues could relate to me as a person, as a competent person, regardless and also regarding my gender? So for me, I felt these were opportunities to really, foster inclusion. There were so many situations, so many, encounters. I had one with, the head of the unit. We were in a meeting and, very bad results, sales, very bad results. And he was having a go at every single person. For some reason, I thought I was going to, in my mind, I was like, am I going to escape this or not? And he turned to me and said, Madam, that already, I don't know what it is about some of this terminology. I was like, okay, wait for it, what's coming? And he just said, okay, I asked you to work on this project, to move customers, to pay for performance. And then he started, gesticulating that for 3 months, you've just been, and this was what he was doing. And I was just like, what exactly is going on here? And I had to bring, the conversation back to what is the issue and what do we want to achieve? That was an eye-opener for me because I observed so many things. One, there was no eye contact. He was actually talking above my head, and that made me, sit up a bit more comfortable to say, you can't look me in the eye. I will do that to you. There was no eye contact, but it was also about what impression do I want to leave with my colleagues, at this meeting, that he could get away with saying, bottom line, it was, you're all fluff. You've just been given excuses. You can't do something so simple. And I had to put it in context. You have 22 years sales experience. I'm not making excuses for myself. I have 18 months, but I'm not making excuses for myself. This project that you're asking me to do within 3 months, you learned it for 10 years in various countries. You've worked on it for another 8 years in various countries. You've had the benefit of experience. Now you're asking me to go from 0 to version 3.0. And then you sent me files and then talked me through these files. But I don't learn like that. This is how I learn. You sit with me, you show me, and then I go off and do it. And basically what that did was I talked myself up and talked him down to say, we are going to have a conversation. What is the issue here? And what is the outcome we're looking for? And for me, being able to do that was an avenue to ensure that, I am being part of the conversation, but not someone to be talked down to. And we had this, we had a meeting over coffee and, he took me through. Fast forward 1 year, I was able to move all customers, to this particular pay for performance, model. So it's very important, for us to realize where we are and the barriers, like I said earlier, that stand in our way. But the most important, just like Shola said, and even Odiri, the internal barriers. If you can break through that, looking up, it's almost, I'm looking for the word, the glass ceiling or whatever barrier that has been set, culture, tradition, society, you have garnered experience dealing with yourself. And it's that same person you're going to use to project, beyond this ceiling. So the second question.
Thank you very much, Adeyanju. Second question, how can organizations move beyond simply talking about diversity and inclusion to actively create an inclusive workplace?
All right. It's amazing, how things, just show up on your timeline. I think it was about 2-3 weeks ago, I was just scrolling through some things on LinkedIn, and I found, these tips by this consulting firm, BCG. And it really, really speaks to what you said, how organizations, can create more inclusive and supportive environments for women. And the first thing was, intentionality. You have to be intentional. Yes, we say it, we mouth it and what have you, but it is so important. What are the things that are required, for all genders? Some organizations, in Nigeria over the last, decade have been able to bring, that to really, take some strides in that, by having crashes, very close to the in their building. So nursing mothers don't have to worry about what's happening to their babies, at home. And just like, Odiri said, the templates the template in terms of leadership development for women, it can't be the same as men. The things we have to think about, the things we have to organize in our heads, and at the same time, run a business or lead a unit and lead a function. And you want to say that, we're on the same level? We're not. The guy gets up, everything is done for him, married, is done for him, and he gets up and go. So he has, I would say, 100% of his brain capacity focused on the job. Now he can take out of that to think a bit about fees and other stuff, that is required for the running of the home. But what the woman is thinking about and focusing on is much more than that. And that brain capacity is what we still have to use and excel across all. It is a lot. So we have to ensure as organizations that we, have a life. And some guys have done it, and you see it also in, in your families. You go off and the man is the one that has to take care of the children. They can't last half an hour. They're already calling, where are you? What needs to be done? And what have you. So organizations need to be able to see things from women's perspectives. And beyond that, have women be part of these decisions that need to be taken, for the entire workforce. Also, little things like ensuring all voices can be heard. There are various avenues that we can do that. Our town hall meetings, our departmental meetings. These are grounds for building inclusive environments. As a leader, there is something you can do, to ensure that inclusivity is brought to the fore. Scan the room, seek people out. You go to a restaurant, you know how difficult it is to catch the eye of a waiter. And you are there like, what are you there for? You're supposed to be scanning the room and looking at, those subtle cues that people are throwing at you, because that's your job. I'm not likening a waiter to the CEO, but you need to be able to learn, to scan the room. Who are those people that you see that they open their mouth, they want to say something? Now you can even see it, virtually as well. The person wants to say something, call on that person. Yes, it might put her, on the spot, but make it easy for the person that, draw them in. And also get to know people. There's this us and them view, or rather, as senior leaders, we at times are cut off from the rest of the organization. Yes, we're busy. Yes, there's so much that but you have to make a deliberate, that's why I started with, the intentionality. You have to make a deliberate attempt to get to know people, to get to understand, what is going on and who the people that you are trying to make, to foster inclusivity are. You need to get to know them. And also asking for help a norm. Don't shut people down. Yes, we mouth it when we have meetings that, oh, there's nothing like a stupid question. But our body language, the, facial expressions, speak volume when somebody, makes a contribution, as in you're like, did you even think that up? How could you? We need to ensure that we make asking for help a norm. I'll never forget, a time when we were having a review meeting with the group team, and the group CEO asked for the meaning of an acronym that was almost FMCG 101. I didn't know it, and I had asked my colleague that, please, what's this thing? And he said, I don't know. And I said, why were you nodding? You don't know, and you're behaving as if you're following the conversation. This guy has lost me. I can't, because he keeps, using this acronym. And the CEO stops the meeting and says, what is this? You could see the expression on the guy's face as in, but he asked, what is this? And he wrote it down. And I wrote it down too. So he actually normalized, asking questions, not being the know-all and be-all. He normalized it at that meeting. And that was an avenue, for including people. And also, little things like honoring people by being fully present. You're in a meeting, it's 30 minutes, put your phone away. You ask someone to, you put your phone away unless there is an emergency. I worked with a GM once that his phone never came into the meetings. So he had no business being on yours. He would come in with a notepad and a pen. So you had no business flipping your laptop. And his rule was, if you're not presenting, your laptop is not on. If you don't have something you want to refer to, your laptop is not open. So be fully present with whenever you're in a meeting, and honor others. Those are just little ways in which we can create inclusion. There's so many more, but I feel that this ones that don't make our walls and all the things that we put up about fostering inclusion, these are the little things that really bring people into the room and enables them to speak up or to speak out, and their contributions taken on board.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adeyanju. I think, yeah, this also answered. There was another question, and I think you had also tackled that thoroughly. It's the same thing. What concrete strategies can organizations implement to help women and minorities break through the glass ceiling? So I am going to go to a question, Chidima, and I'm going to bring this question to you. Well, it's more of a comment. And the person said, I had an experience working in a male-dominated job in an oil and gas firm, and my fellow woman, out of jealousy, made me lose the job. I did put in my best to be the best at my job. Women always against their fellow women in the workplace. Chidima, what do you think? What's your take on this?
Honestly, I sympathize with her, and it is unfortunate to hear about the negative experience she had at her previous workspace. And I just think it is very important to recognize that not all women are against each other in the workplace. However, there are instances of competition, jealousy, or undermining behavior that can occur in our work environments, regardless of the gender. And this is not limited to women. And I think sometimes these behaviors can stem from various factors, and these factors could include individual personalities, the organizational culture itself. Again, perceived scarcity of opportunities for the women. That is why you would sometimes find them fighting against each other. And the biggest, which is the societal norm. I mean, the person who posted the question is saying that already pretty much concluded that women are always against themselves. So if we can even begin to rethink that position, perhaps it can even begin to help everyone around us, women, men, to change that narrative. So I think beyond us just assuming that women are always against themselves, because I, as a woman, I am not against my fellow woman. I think it's a mindset that needs to change. So there needs to be that change in the paradigm of our mindset into the fact that women can always support women. So if we can change that mindset, perhaps we can step out of that. But again, I acknowledge that it's a societal norm, and I have seen a lot of people encouraging this: women don't support women. Perhaps we should just forget about women not supporting women and move to women supporting women, right? So I would like to actually encourage that on this platform and not speak more about the question, because I really do not have details on what transpired in her previous life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Audrey, there's a question here. Most times I have a lot to say, but I see myself saying little or nothing. How do I get over this? Adeyanju, I know you had touched on that when you had said, for instance, maybe you see someone wanting to say something, once you notice it, just call on the person. You might, putting this person on the spot, but you actually find the person actually has something tangible to say. So Audrey, what do you think? How do you think this person can get with it? It's a question of self-confidence, believing in yourself.
All right, thank you very much. An interesting question, and I'll say to a large extent, we've all been there, we've all experienced that, So one practical thing I would say is write what it is that you want to say, write it down. Because sometimes if you try to speak from your head, you forget, once that anxiety starts creeping up, you just forget, it's like what you want to say just flies out of your head. So write it down, and it's not wrong if you're asking a question or making a comment to read from your notes, to read what you have written. Don't see it as, oh, I need to speak from my head, so people think I know what I'm saying. No. At the initial stage when you're practicing or learning, speak from what you've written. Write it down properly and then read it out. One thing it does for you, it helps your confidence. The truth is, a lot of the time I realize that when I try to speak off my head, I tend to forget what it is I want to say, or just briefly summarize it without, at the end of the day, hitting, the main point that I want to say. So if it helps you, write what it is that you have to say, write it down fully, and then read from your notes. Over time, you build that confidence and you reduce the pressure of the anxiety, and then you can now, train yourself to say, okay, I will speak off my head. And it is practice makes perfect. Don't assume that people who speak, they have it all together. majority of the time, they're also looking at what they have written down. They've jotted the main point, down also, and then practice before a mirror. It was something I used to do, when I was growing up. Practice before a mirror. Practice what you want to say before a mirror. Listen to yourself say it. If it doesn't sound right, you correct it, go back again, or you record yourself, asking that question or making that comment. Whatever it is you have to do, make it practical and make sure you've, developed that internal confidence, before that meeting or before that session. But it's important for you to understand that it is not wrong or it's not out of place, to read what from your note when you're speaking or, when you're asking a question. Hope that helps you.
Thank you very much. That question, yes, thank you very much. That question was from Nina. Nina, I hope you got some tips there. So we're rounding up. I just want to quickly, in about 2 minutes, Adeyanju, there's a question as a career coach. How would you advise women who are facing imposter syndrome or self-doubt, at the strive for, leadership positions? What would your advice be?
First, I would ask if you have a list of your accomplishments, your brag sheet. We kind of like downplay the things that we have accomplished. I mean, when, Diri was talking about when she became CEO and the fear, I was just smiling because I encountered, that as well. It's you being aware of what it is that you have accomplished. And also those narratives, the things that you are telling yourself, it is real. The fears, the imposter syndrome, I am not making light of it. It is real. But start first from a position of knowledge. What is the truth about your accomplishments, the things that you have accomplished? There is evidence, and I would use Odiri, if you don't mind, as an example, because I don't know who this person, but there is evidence. Let's go far back as uni days. He came out with a first class. There's, you have a receipt to show for it. You have your certificate that you are a fellow of, you're a chartered accountant. It's there. You have done XYZ. It's there. You have a master's, 3 masters, or even 1 or none at all. It's there. The things that you have accomplished on your previous roles, it is there. By the time, you go through, there's something it does for you when you look at the things that you have accomplished. It actually bumps up, your confidence in the sense that you are able to internalize it and own it. They didn't give it to you. You read. Somebody who came out with a first class, you were not given. You worked for it. So this is what you have. And, you start, from there. Now, when opportunities come, I had spoken about, the way we self-select ourselves and think that, oh, we are not enough, for this particular role. Go through the requirements. If you can tick off 50, statistics will tell us that, the men, if when they see 60, they go ahead. If you can tick off 50, apply for it. But the thing is, almost always women are at 90 or even 100% or more than the requirement. So what is it, that's holding us back? I personally, I acknowledge my fears. And what I tell it is, this is where I'm going. You can come along with me. It doesn't mean that, before I enter the meeting or before I take on that task or activity, my heart is not pounding, that I feel that, people can actually even see through what I'm wearing, or my voice is not shaking a bit. But I tell myself, my butterflies, they do synchronized swimming. I have learned to get them to, move in formation. So it's about you talking yourself up or talking yourself down out of whatever it is. You know yourself. So you should be able to take what you have and use it for yourself. Your mouth, everything. Advocate for yourself. Yes, it's not easy, it's practice, but start first with the things that you have accomplished so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oops.
Some I think as we round up, I'm going to be asking for key takeaways from each member of our panelists, just about 2 minutes. I just wanted to just reflect us, for us to just reflect on some areas, also some key takeaways for me. I mean, what was said, you determine how far you go. Nobody will determine for you. I know we have said, having a sense of identity, a sense of purpose. You need to build your knowledge. You need to develop yourself. You need to learn. Take on challenges. Don't be afraid to say no. Call out bias when you see it, not just for yourself, but even for other people. Organizations also need to be intentional, and have these conversations and actually have even policies or institutionalize a culture where there's inclusivity and diversity, as well as, as women, Adeyanju has spoken about self-imposter syndrome, and even acknowledging your own accomplishments and building on that. And I know that Chidima, you had also mentioned about networking and collaboration. So I'm going to, just as I said, the 2 minutes, Shola, I'm coming to you. What are your key takeaways?
I think from Adeyanju's last conversation is basically, one thing is for the imposter syndrome, you need to sit down and have a conversation with your imposter self and tell him or her that I've got this, I can beat it because I'm able to. So that's self-assurance and reassurance that we need to have the inner voice countering the negative voice to ourselves to build ourselves up and give ourselves the confidence that we need. The second point for me, or the second key takeaway for me, is that, we are looking at the world and the world is looking at us. So that constant awareness that other people are actually watching us perform and watching us do well, and our ability to leverage on the brownie points we've earned over the years with our accomplishments and us reminding ourselves of those accomplishments is really very important. A reflection point that I've taken away, and it's still a question in my mind, is should we really be demanding as women to be treated differently in organizations? And this for me came when we're talking about the leadership training and what it entails. Should we continue to ask for a different set of rules for us? Or should we drag the organization to understand us? Should we bring ourselves to the fore so the organization is forced to accommodate and relate to us and make sort of be deliberate about these women are going through this? And I'll give you a very short example. In my current organization, with it's very deliberate. It's an international, it's a multinational. It's very deliberate about inclusion, all kinds of inclusion and all of that. But in the past year, through 2023, we're talking consistently about menopause and what it means for women dealing with menopause. But we were not being asked to be treated differently. We were putting the information out there so that people know us for who we are and what it means and how we are. So that reflection of should we be telling people more about ourselves, or should we be asked to go into a separate room and be given a separate set of rules as to how to rise? My take is we should be speaking more about ourselves. We should be bringing ourselves to the fore. These are our authentic selves. It should be front and center. We shouldn't be shy to say, oh, I'm on my period, so I need to hide with my sanitary towel to go to the toilet. If I didn't have a period, you wouldn't be here. It's as simple as that. It's a fact. Let us not cower and hide who we are. Let us embrace ourselves. Let's embrace our womanhood and bring it to the fore and wear it like a crown and just display it. And, everybody will eventually understand what we're made of, what we can achieve, what we can't achieve. But we need to advertise and celebrate ourselves a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you, Shola. That was straight to the point. I mean, that is why the reason why all of us are here. There was a process that led to all of us being here, and actually just celebrating ourselves and not hiding. And I know I mentioned this at a previous webinar where I had said it was one of my male colleagues who, one of his line reports was struggling with period pain, was struggling with cramps and so on. And he actually was one championing, oh, do you know what? She needs to go to clinic or she needs to work from home remotely. How can we support her? And I was really wowed by it was just really different. He didn't shy away from the topic. He actually came to me and said, oh, she's really worried that she's been missing work. So how do we work around this so she doesn't feel like she's struggling? And those are the kind of conversations we're excited to have with our male colleagues that, don't shy away from this kind of discussions and this is normal. She's going through it. How do we support her? So thank you very much for that perspective, Shola. Atunike, your key takeaway.
So this has been eye-opening for me. I have seen some realities that have not been mine. But layering on what Shola said, when you mentioned that we need to celebrate ourselves and not necessarily advocate for change, I believe that when women were forced into the workforce, whatever happened, the Second World War, and people needed to have more people in the workforce and all that, there were already set of rules that were there that were not tailored for women. The set of rules that were built for the work environment were the set of rules that were built for those who started the work environment, and that was men. There would be no sense in having maternity leave if you're all just men in the work environment. And of course, with advocacy, we got that. With advocacy, we got some other things. And to the ownership of what we need, I really believe that in addition to bringing awareness of who we are, we should not be ashamed to demand for what we need, knowing fully well that the environment, the institution, because we are more like a batch two. Batch one were men that it was built for. So the institution we are being put into to fit into now has to be adjusted to accommodate both sexes. And to what Odiri said, leadership programs should be unique to each gender, not necessarily because we are weaker or more sensitive, but the initial curation did not have us in consideration. So to the things we need, we should own it in terms of demand, that this would make it more conducive because we were pointed into an environment that did not initially have us in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Atunike. Very well said. Thank you so much. Chidima.
Hi, Faith. So my key takeaway is that the ceiling exists, but it doesn't exist. It is sometimes psychological, like mentioned by Shola. That was, again, a new perspective for me. But it is also quite heartening to see a consensus about the existence and impact of the glass ceiling, whether it is psychological, physical, or metaphorical. Another thing I found very interesting was Adeyanju's point, questioning the very existence of this barrier, given its nature. I thought it brought a very intriguing layer to discussion. And for me, it's a reminder that while the barriers may not be tangible, their effects are very real, right? Based on the different scenarios that we presented during the discussion, it can impact, and it is impacting countless individuals' career trajectories and aspirations. And the various perspective encourages us not just to accept these barriers as a given, but to challenge and deconstruct them. And it prompted me, or rather, it is prompting me to ask, certain questions around how are we contributing to the perpetuation of these barriers, either knowingly or unknowingly, like in the case of the lady who said her fellow woman made her lose her job in her workplace. And more importantly, how can we dismantle them, not just individually, but collectively, either as an organization or, as women in general. And to build on this, I believe our focus should not only be on recognizing the glass ceiling, but actively seeking ways to eliminate it. And this means implementing either organizational changes in our respective organizations that can encourage inclusivity, encourage an inclusive culture, and create various pathways for mentorship, doing it deliberately and, being able to advance all everyone, basically, irrespective of their gender. And lastly, I would like to say that, we need to move beyond acknowledging the existence of this glass ceiling in quote, and to then spearhead initiatives that can encourage through true gender equity and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chidima. I think you and Atinuke shared the perspective around this glass ceiling, is it there or not? And
like
I think I'm
neither
yeah. I think the important is that it's maybe there, but I am the one in control. I'm the one that is going to take charge. Yeah. And you also reiterated the importance of organizations being deliberate about inclusion and not just acknowledging it, but doing something about it. Yeah, thank you very much. Otiri, your key takeaway.
All right, thank you very much. I think a lot has been said, very interesting points. There's a lot of takeaways. I think the first thing I would say is, organization has a role to play in keeping the glass ceiling off. The policies that we create, the way we support women rising in their career, a lot of women probably get frustrated and they choose to, probably go and set up their own business and become entrepreneurs. So at the end of the day, we have a lot of women starting out at the entry level, but very few going through the middle level. So organization has a strategic role to play, and they have to be intentional. But the interesting part of the organization is that the organization is really about you and I. As we get to that top also, we need to drive the policies that will help, retain more women in the organization and help them to, get to senior level position. The second key takeaway for me also, looking at what everyone has said, and the fact that, beyond, structural and organizational barriers, there's also that internal barrier. And I'm asking myself, how do I train my female kids? How do I train my son, such that when they get into the workplace, they are not feeling entitled or they're not feeling incompetent or they don't have the confidence to, to raise up their hand when there is an opportunity that they are obviously, competent for. So we also need to pay attention to how we are bringing up the next generation of women, and the next generation of children, because at the end of the day, they are still the one that whether drive this policy or tear off the policy or, shape the policy that will help, eventually shatter the glass ceiling. Somebody talked about the fact that, this glass ceiling itself, can it be completely eradicated? I would say, as long as we have human beings, in this world, and we still have our own internal biases and stereotypes, which might be born out of our experience, and environment, we might be able to reduce it significantly, but total eradication, it might be till Jesus come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Odiri. You brought out actually a key issue. I mean, we're both raised, we're raised from homes, different homes. Children are raised from different homes. So how they are raised, how they perceive things, how, for instance, growing up in a family of 5, being the only girl, and how it was kind of expected or the norm that I should be the one to cook and just take care of the family, take care of the boys. And so, growing up with that mindset, so you automatically take on that role of, is who we are, we're naturals. But having to change that mindset and, raising up our kids to realize that, no, we both have to learn how to do the same thing and respecting each other and knowing that, no, it's not one person's role to do a certain type of job or so, but the chores are shared, equally. And then so they're all growing up with that mindset. I think that's really important, especially so that, as a new generation come on board, they also realize that, yes, this is not the way it's done. It is not the norm. It's everybody's responsibility. We are actually on equal footing and should be treated as such. Thank you, Audrey, for that. Adeyanju, I'm going to come to you now. Your key takeaways on this. Really interesting. You spent a lot of time and there's still so much. I don't think we can tackle everything in one session.
Honestly, I think it's the realization that the glass ceiling is in 3 forms: the metaphorical, the physical, and the internal, which Shola highlighted early on. And it really got me thinking about how do I tie what Odiri said about, which is reality, that women have to prove themselves 10 times more in terms of, the actual results that they're delivering and their competence compared to their male counterparts. And as she was talking, and I was beginning to link it to the self-doubt and the lack of confidence, the self-assurance that we all face. It seems to be heightened, more in women than men. And it is something that, I've been studying. It's called the confidence gap or the authority gap, however you want to look at it. And wondering, has that been the basis for this phenomenon that we have to do 10 times more to prove ourselves? That when we started out, proving ourselves or demonstrating competence, we shrouded it in so much, we would punch holes in things, that we have done, almost to the point of not making it even a reality. And, it's just got my head, thinking about how can we, because it's hard work having to do something 10 times more. Why can't I do the same or slightly more? And it is acknowledged and seen and recognized. That I have to do 10 times more is so tasking. But I just then began to think about, what is the origin? How do I make sure that myself and the women around me and much more, right from the young age, tackle that internal barrier first and foremost before they begin to look at the physical? Because I think there's so much to do with the internal barrier that it changes your mindset. If you're able to tackle that, it actually changes your mindset, that you're beginning to look for, okay, where exactly is this glass ceiling? And when you do find it, it's a tap, not a shattering. It's a tap to say, hey, it's meant for everyone, not just women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adeyanju. Really key here, where you have, the issue of tackling the internal glass ceiling, and which a lot, I think it was emphasized throughout the conversation, especially when Audrey spoke about her experience, so that even internal belief in yourself, not believing that, not even seeing the glass ceiling at all. Yeah, is there a glass ceiling at all? And even if there is, it's just to walk through. Even just feeling that even the men to have the glass ceiling, both of us are going to get there and see, who gets there first. So thank you very much for that. Atinuke, I'm going to follow you. Please give the closing remarks. This has been an interesting and very engaging session. I am privileged to have hosted and moderated this session. Atinuke, please could you give the closing remarks?
It's been an honor just sitting with women as myself from different realities, speaking about their truth and bringing to the table a wealth of knowledge. I would want us, I know this is in celebration of the International Women's Month, but I have learned a lot. And to everybody who has tuned in to participate and listening on this webinar, I hope a lot has been learned. I hope perspectives and different viewpoints have been taken, but most importantly, the key takeaways, I hope we have all been able to land on something we'll take to better improve ourselves and break this glass ceiling, which Chidera and I are not too sure. But thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us, and I like the opportunity to speaking with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, I want to thank our panelists, Atinuke Kolade, Group Head Retention and Growth, Avon HMO, Odiri Ogini, Chief Executive Officer, United as Capital Asset Management, Chidima Ojeaga, Manager, External and Government Affairs, Health Energies, Shola Mabatije, Company Secretary and Head Little Nigeria and West Africa Standard Chartered Bank, and Adeyanju Olomola, Career Coach and Chief Executive Officer, The Source Coaching Limited. Thank you very much for taking time to be here. So there's so much learning that has happened today, and I know that everyone benefited from this. I also want to thank our participants, everyone who asked questions, everyone who joined. I mean, this is really appreciate you for taking time to join us. You can see there are quite a number of people on live who have joined. So thank you very much for that. If you have any questions that you want to share later, even after the session, or direct it to any of our panelists, please share it with us and we'll certainly share it with them and get back to you. Or you just want to know a bit more about Avon HMO, you want to buy a plan, you can reach out to us on our website, www.avonhealthcare.com, or at our social media handles at Avon HMO on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you and bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.